What's the biggest plot twist you've seen in real life? In primary school we had a WWI memorial lesson and we were asked if anyone had any relatives who fought at the time. My friend brought in a picture of his great-great-grandfather with his wife. A girl also brought in a picture of her great-great-grandfather with his wife. The teacher said they looked similar. She put them side by side and looked shocked. We gathered around and it was the same man who had kept his two wives a secret. Both had been married privately. They were cousins and didn't know. Wow. Met a dude at my local 24-hour fitness who was wearing a Shark Punch shirt. Since most people have no clue about that band, I immediately decided I needed to talk to bro out with this dude about his particular taste in music, metal. We get to talking, find out he's a drummer, lives locally and wants to start jam some evil. Awesome. Exchange numbers and all that good stuff. Of course, however, actually meeting up with reliable musicians is much harder than it sounds, despite the enthusiasm. Around the same time I was working security at a local bar, and met this random cute girl who wasn't from the area but was totally into me and wanted to hang out. Exchanged numbers and planned to meet up. When we finally did, we hit it off pretty well, but she had mentioned that she's still kinda dating around, but really liked me and hoped that I was okay with that. Totally was okay with that because I was also doing the same thing. We hung out maybe another time, but then shortly after was hit with the "sorry but I'm kinda dating this other guy for serious" line, and I said I understood and moved on. When Jim Guy and I finally managed to get together to jam, a friend of his was there to play bass with us. We get introduced, started talking about random, when Jim Guy happened to mention to the buddy about the girl he was dating. He and I both started sharing our similarities and preference of people we date, and I asked to see what she looked like. He's like, "Sorry dude, she doesn't have any social media or anything like that, but I have a video of her at some restaurant we went to a few weeks back." Shows me the video. Me, "Ah, she's cute." Him, "Yeah, I met her smoking outside of some bar in LA." Me, "Dude, she totally reminds me of this girl I was dating not too long ago." "What's her name?" Him, "Kim." Me, "Wait, really? That's so weird, I was dating a girl named Kim too." "What are the odds?" "Hold up, she has a Snapchat, right?" Him, "Yeah, why?" Me, I start trying to find her on Snap. "Dude, what's her name on there?" The friend at this time is looking at the both of us like oh and starts laughing. Both of us at the same time, Kimber Sleaze. Friend is dying of laughter at this point, and we both come to the realization that we are the same dudes she ended up leaving/staying with. We still ended up jamming anyways. Maybe this isn't that big, but here it goes. I'm a medic and one morning we had a call for an older woman, 70s if I remember right. She was having cardiac issues, was in compensated shock from a very low heart rate. From the time we got to her home to the time we were in the ambulance she had gotten much worse. We paced her heart, and she was doing good the rest of our hour ride to the hospital. About 16 hours later we get called for a rollover car accident. Get there and we have one male in the vehicle, unresponsive. Vehicle is upside down off the road. We get him out, he is in very bad shape. Wasn't breathing, so we intubated him and off to the hospital we went. Almost to the hospital, which is 30 miles away, and he goes into traumatic cardiac arrest. Dead when we get there. While we were on the way to the hospital we found his wallet, since we didn't know who he was. Saw his badge. Retired police officer, and I remember from the morning, our patient's husband was a retired officer. He was on his way to see his wife. Unfortunately he stopped by the bar first. While it wasn't my job, I went with the nurse to talk to the wife and let her know what happened. She thanked me for being there for her family so much that day. I've had a similar experience to this one. We had an old couple in different wards in our hospital. I was treating the wife on my geriatric Starion. On one of my weekly night shifts I responded to a CPR alarm to reanimate the husband. It didn't go successfully. I personally took my patient to see her husband for one last time. One of the most emotionally draining days of my residency. I have a coworker, Joe, great guy who has an equally great wife, Nina. Over the years, and even prior to meeting Joe, multiple doctors told Nina she would be unable to get pregnant on her own due to problems with her ovaries and fallopian tubes. She and Joe decided that a child-free life was okay with them. So, she and Joe married and lived happily for 12 years. When they started out, they didn't have much, but as time passed, they progressed in their careers and made a nice life for themselves. Finally, they got to a point that they were comfortable enough to buy a sports car for themselves, something Joe always wanted to do. It was the first new, off-the-lot car they ever owned. Now Joe and Nina were in their early 40s at this time and figured they'd just coast on into retirement. Well, about 6 months after they bought the car, winter came. Nina got a case of the flu she just couldn't seem to shake. She just felt run down and nauseous, just not herself. After about 3 weeks of this, she went to the doctor. The doctor asked if there was any possibility she could be pregnant. She laughed at him and said, "I've been married for 12 years now and haven't had so much as a scare of being pregnant. Multiple doctors said it's just not going to happen for me. No way." But, her doctor said, "Humor me and let me rule it out. Just do a urine test." Well, wanting to figure out what was actually wrong with her ASAP, Nina peed on the stick and, you guessed it, pregnant. So, in their 40s and with 12 years of living just the two of them, they were expecting. After the initial shock wore off, they were actually pretty excited even though they had to sell the sports car, since a two-seater wasn't really going to work for them. A few months later, their son John came into the world the usual way, happy, healthy baby. So, they became a family of 3 and they still are today. John just finished his first year of high school, great kid and super smart too. You just never know what life's gonna throw at you. My sister's boyfriend decided that he wanted to do more with his architecture skills, so he gave his 2 weeks notice and moved to Haiti to help rebuild after the earthquake. They stayed together. He had bad phone service, so they mostly kept in touch through emails. He would send her long emails with photos and stories of what they were doing. This went on for a couple of months. One offhanded tip from a coworker and a week of sleuthing later and it turns out he never went to Haiti. He moved to Seattle to be with his fiancée and partner of 9 years. This happened to the mother of my friend growing up. She was dating a guy for a few years and things were getting pretty serious. Then one day he goes on holiday to visit his parents in Argentina. She goes to meet him at the airport when he's due to come home and there's no sign of him for hours, so she calls him and he says he contracted a serious illness in Argentina and he isn't well enough to fly back, and basically says he doesn't have long to live. She panics and phones him every day to see how he is. He starts avoiding her calls and after about a week of not responding, she thinks the worst and contacts the police, who trace his credit card used to London, where she lives. They find an address that it's linked to and she does some sleuthing, so she goes to the address only to find his wife and infant daughter, while he's away on a supposed business trip. They both bond over what a complete he is and both decide they're better off without him and dramatically leave him when he gets back from his business trip. Pretty sure the two women are still friends. During the last year of my grandfather's life he had dementia and was having trouble keeping track of reality. Before he was placed into hospice he kept complaining about a man that was in his house. He would say that he would come around at night and that he was taking his things and using his stuff. Grandma of course kept reassuring him that she was the only one there. His doctor increased his medications because he was losing touch with reality so badly. Fast forward to my grandfather's funeral and a man showed up that wasn't known by more than a few people in the family. Turns out he was an old friend of my grandmother's who showed up to give his support. In a small town like that it wasn't exactly an unusual thing to have random people show up to the funeral home who knew the person at some point. Well, about a year later my grandmother lets slip that she is seeing someone, the guy from funeral. At this point nothing too odd, they got to talking at church and we thought it was sweet. Then a bit later sweet innocent old grandma mentions that it's their 3rd anniversary. Grandpa died 2 years prior. This man was the person that Grandpa saw in his house every night. He was the reason that everyone thought Grandpa was going crazy. He was the reason that my grandfather was medicated to the point of being a vegetable for the last horrible year of his life. TLDR Grandpa thought he saw someone in his house before he died. Turns out it was Grandma's boyfriend.